it feels great to be back in action with the Adam is Chase podcast. I couldn't think of a better way on my Tuesday afternoon than to talk about somebody what can't get claimed. We're gonna talk about some horror films, okay? The latest and I guess the next installment of a horror franchise is The Exorcist, which Exorcist Believer, I watched it this morning. It might have came out yesterday, but I watched it this morning. And I have a few thoughts about that. And I also want to talk about one of my favorite, in the discussion of horror, one of my favorite horror filmmakers, Ty West, because I just recently watched Pearl. I know it's been a year, I think. So I'm a little late to the party, but I wanted to talk about it because I think there's a lot of stuff that he has done before X and before Pearl that is just really fucking great. And I want to talk about that. Okay. So let's just get this fucking shit started, dude. All right. Ty West. There's been, I would say there's been a good amount of horror filmmakers between, like the heavy hitters like Ari Aster, Brandon Cronenberg, but I don't know about Brandon. It's more like creepy and unsettling, if anything. Fede Alvarez is a good one. There's a few, right? And the filmmaker in discussion that we're talking about, Ty West. This dude, I have been a fan of since I want to say VHS, but I definitely around that same time watched House of the Devil. And for those of you who don't know House of the Devil, it's a horror film that just basically deals with the seance and whatnot, right? Your typical, but how it's shot, because it was made in, I think 2000. It was like the late 2000s. It was like 2008. I want to say 2007 to 2010, 2010. Might be wrong. I don't know, but it's shot like as if it's like from the mid 70s, like, John Carpenter Halloween type of style, like filmmaking, just very wide shots and not so much color saturation. I don't two-dimensional sounds really bad, but it's sort of like that, and that film captured my attention immediately because I never seen a director that put that much ode to a style of filmmaking, especially in the horror genre, that it can work. You know what I mean? And adopt that same sentiment with this, with how Ty West does his filmmaking and whatnot. And the great thing about Ty is that the guy has like different ways of going about his projects every single time. I would say is a versatile filmmaker because the next film he did, a lot of people didn't like it, especially around my circle of friends, which I didn't really understand. He made a film called The Sacrament, and it's a found footage film that is sort of in the same vein of like, it's a documentary style, I guess it's mockumentary, but in the horror genre of documentarians who just want to film a cult, essentially. And then shit goes awry, of course, as any horror film does. And I think it's fine. I think it's fun. I do like the cultish takes on certain filmmakers and what they want to bring to the table, because I know there's so many documentaries and narratives and all sorts of shit about like cultish behavior in cult like societies, and even my script that I'm trying to pitch and get made, it does have a little bit of cultish behavior, but it's not, of course, the overall plot of the story like The Sacrament is. The Sacrament is just very much about this cult, and it centers around it. So he has a different way of approaching, I feel like, every single one of his films. And I have to respect a filmmaker that does that, because it's kind of like it's like learning a new thing all over again. Whereas a lot of filmmakers, like Chris Nolan, for an instance, he has a very specific way of shooting. He has a very specific way of filming everything. The narratives that he wants to tell and the stories he wants to share, I don't want to say they're all similar, because they're not. They're all different stories, right? Oppenheimer's very different than the Dark Knight trilogy, but there's a focus in which you kind of know, you can kind of see it's a Christopher Nolan film. Michael Mann, same thing. It's a Michael Mann film because of how the lighting is. It's like hueish blue. It's like kind of like hazy in a way in certain instances. Like Heat or Collateral, one of my favorite films. One of my favorite, I think, Tom Cruise films. And if you haven't seen Collateral, fucking good God. Jamie Foxx is in it. He plays as a cab driver, and Tom Cruise is a hitman. That's all I need to say. That shit goes hard. So good. Definitely recommend that film. But with Ty West, like I think he doesn't get enough attention or love because he adopts a new style of filmmaking each and every movie, including this kind of like, I guess, trilogy that's going to be about, it's going to have Mia Goth from the first film, which is X, but we're gonna get to that. We're taking things one step at a time, okay? And we're actually gonna rewind a little bit to talk about VHS. The segment that I think Ty West done in VHS is if any of you have watched VHS or even know what it's about, it's just an anthology film that has like, I think, like 4 or 5 like little short films, like vignettes. No, they're not vignettes. They're its own thing. And I think there's like 4 or 5 movies, and that sort of branched into a franchise by itself, I think. Yeah, because there's like been VHS 2 and 3 and Viral and all sorts of shit. Which I heard nothing but good things about, and VHS 94 I heard is like pops off really well. But anyways, the first VHS, the OG, had Ty West's story, and that was it was a road trip story, and it had to do with a couple just hearing weird shit at a motel, and weird shit is happening to them around the motel and shit like that, and while they sleep and whatnot. It's like in the found footage kind of like filmmaking and whatnot. It's sort of in the vein of Creep, if anybody's seen that film. Mark Duplass and director I'm forgetting the name of, but he was good. It was very good. But it's in that same sort of vein of like found footage. You're kind of like seeing the perspective of the creep, basically, without giving too much away. But it's a great movie, both great movies. And VHS is really like an astounding like anthology found footage kind of like film. It's not a kind. It is. That's what it is. And I don't think any one of those stories I was just like, that was all right. Like all of them were pretty good. And this was made, I think, in the early or maybe in the early 2010s, something like that. I don't remember every single date. And also, I am so tired. Okay. But this is the end of the day, and I just wanted to shoot the shit with you guys. Okay. So yeah, Ty West has a very eclectic way of shooting and storytelling and whatnot, and it's evident with the newest one. I think he also did a film called The Innkeepers that I really enjoyed, and it was like it takes place in a hotel that is like run down and dingy and shit. And I mean, there's a few points where it's kind of goofy, but that's kind of what makes it like the magic of that. It kind of reminds me of like a like an 80s TV movie, like some cheaply made 80s horror film, that's like made for TV and whatnot. That's like played in like Halloween circulation and shit, almost in the vein of like those awesome like Goosebump films. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, films. The show, the Goosebump show, or were they films at one point? Like, didn't R.L. Stine adapt them to like, I don't fucking know, whatever. But anyways, Goosebumps, I think, had a TV show. Oh, there's a narrative thing, and The Innkeepers kind of felt like that vibe, but way more serious, and it's way more, like raunchy and shit like that. Well, maybe not raunchy, but kind of violent and brutal. So yeah, the Innkeepers is great. So then let's fast forward to X. Now, X is an interesting sort of like what can become like a trilogy. You know what I mean? Because I watched X and I watched Pearl because I saw the trailer right after X, and I didn't, for some reason, I'm such an idiot. I didn't have the connection at first when I watched the film X, which we're going to get into spoilers, of course. So strap in. And watching that film for the first time and seeing the trailer at the end, or at least the teaser at the end of X, was so fucking rad. It was super fucking cool. And seeing that, I didn't make the connection to Pearl until then. And I was like, oh, that's what that movie was about? Oh, shit. And I immediately watched it because fuck yeah. That shit sounds crazy. And it really was. And what I liked about it the most, starting off with X, but it centers around the same actress, I guess, playing two different characters, I think, whose name Maxine, who the actor Mia Goth had played both Maxine and Pearl. And Mia Goth, of course, like steals the fucking show. And I never seen her before X, I don't think. Or maybe I have. No, I haven't. But she kind of reminds me of like Andrea Riseborough, who was in Possessor and To Leslie. Like there's a dynamic range when it comes to Mia Goth, and she can easily tap into any one of that shit. She's a fucking thespian, but like to the nth degree. She hones in and knows exactly how to play these characters. Which I think propels a film way more if Ty West had anybody else in that role. I think Mia Goth was like literally fit like a glove for that role. And maybe he did write it for her, I don't know, but you definitely see that. For both roles, I meant Pearl and Maxine. So with X, we begin this story with Maxine and her trials and tribulations with the porn industry, and how she feels about it all, and her traversing through that world. And they end up kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre style. It's like a bunch of friends who inevitably go to a some random ass home. I think it was it in Texas. I don't know, but or where it's supposed to take place. I know it's shot in New Zealand, but I don't know where it is originally taken place at. But the farm and Maxine playing around with the like kind of like the interior of this farm, and the farm, I don't know, like it gave me a vibe of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it was sort of in its own fucking thing, and it was absolutely genius to like have a whole array of characters and even props all the way to like the vehicles that have a recurring role from X to Pearl. And I think by itself X is good, but I feel like it plays better when you watch both X and then Pearl. And I'm sure Maxine's going to be the same thing, because at the end of Pearl, you kind of see a little teaser about Maxine. It's kind of like in the VHS era of filmmaking, like, with like in the 80s and whatnot, which is awesome, because that means that you have a whole trilogy that are all three period pieces in different points in time, which is fucking rad, one. And two, Ty West is able to tap that as just like a filmmaker. Oh, there's also one other film that I just remembered too. But anyways, the way that he taps into all these time periods and fit basically the way that somebody from that time in how they would film it. Does that make sense? I don't know. So basically how he films it in that time period, whether it's X, which is like kind of like in the 70s, late 70s a little bit, and shot it like that too. Lots of like dingy kind of coloring and wider shots and whatnot, sort of like House of the Devil, in a way, so coming full circle. But there's a different way of that kind of filmmaking with Pearl, because it takes place in like the early 1800s. I don't really know when it takes place, during the flu, whenever the flu was happening around that time, and people had to quarantine and whatnot. I think it was the early 1900s, or at most, at the latest, the late 1800s, if anything. But either way, it takes place a long ass time ago, in a town called Kickapoo. There lived a humble family, religious through and through. Shout out to Tenacious D. If you know, you know. Sorry. Anyways, I'm really tired, you guys. I'm so tired. I am operating on just 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I am just, it is wacky time. We're getting silly wacky time here. Okay, so going back to X, there's a lot of original filmmaking, just kind of by its lonesome, and then Pearl is also its own style of filmmaking by its lonesome. And I heard a lot of people say that it's like, I think this film would be way better if it's enjoyed as a trilogy, which I do agree to a certain extent. Although, like, I do think that, like, at a certain point, there's gonna be a way to introduce your sequel or threequels or whatever the fuck to a new batch of audiences, which is hard to do if you're, I don't know, Star Wars, right? But at the same time, at least for me, when I was a kid, I started off with Empire Strikes Back, which is the second movie. And I wouldn't say I knew everything, but it was still a compelling story because it ended in a way that I never seen a movie end before, which is like the losers lost. The rebels were losers, and the Empire just sort of like kind of, just kept doing what they always been doing, you know, kicking ass and taking names. That's what they were doing. But Ty West has a way to tap into the time period and also tap into a new way of storytelling that is, at least for the most part, and with X and Pearl and all that, it centers around its main character, which is Pearl. Going to the second film, Pearl, like how Pearl was shot is sort of like how someone would imagine if they want to be part of the movies, and they only can use with what they got around them, which is, Pearl living on a farm with a super horribly strict mother, who never gave her time of fucking day for anything, and she has to take care of her father, who's essentially a vegetable. He can't move. He's just on like a permanent state of ketosis. Just can't move, can't do anything. And saying vegetable is kind of a mean thing, but like you'll understand why I said that when you watch the film. Because Pearl has a really tough history. And I don't know. I was not on board with Halloween humanizing Michael Myers, but I'm definitely on board with Ty West humanizing someone like Pearl. Because Pearl, there's a story behind it, right? The Shape, in who Michael Myers is as the Shape, is just the embodiment of evil. Pure evil, said by the Loomis in the first Halloween film, which has always been the case, no matter what. You always just have to make sure that the level of ambiguity and mysteriousness is what sells the character as unsettling, as horrifying, right? Because it's left to your imagination. Wherever this fucking Michael Myers came from is left to your imagination. Same thing for Freddy Krueger. You don't, like, through all the Nightmare on Elm Street films, you don't really, like... I mean, I think at some point they did. It's been a minute since I watched Freddy films, and I probably should give it another go. Might be a great time to dust off the old collection for this spooky season, But it's just he is bad, right? Like, it's just you are a monster of a film, and the what is like the mere definition of who an antagonist is, that's that, right? Michael Myers, Freddy, Jason, all that, right? And I feel like with Ty West's approach, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people would be down for this, but I can also understand why people aren't down for this, right? Because why would you humanize a murderer? That doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you watch Pearl and understand that the dreams and wishes that she has, she can't get to that point because of the circumstances that she's in. And her mother tells her that, like, sometimes life, you have to just take it for what it is. There's nothing you can really do. You just have to, settle for less, essentially. And of course, that's a bullshit way of going about life. But at that time, in that era, especially when the flu is going around, you really don't have a lot of choices. You have to just adhere to what the parents are doing and, giving away the farm or like handing the farm off to their kids or whatever the fuck. Pearl has different intentions. And there's nothing wrong with a girl and having dreams, right? We're all human. We have dreams. But her dream is definitely of a psychotic notion. Because, look, when you make a good story, it's not it's not just wholly about, it's not whole, like every single story isn't about why this person is the way they are, or let's do a deep character study of fucking Jason. Although Jason is the Friday the 13th guy, I mean, like, we're just going to center around these group of mouth-breathing teenagers who just have sex in almost every single fucking movie. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels like movies don't allow that to really happen, and rightfully so, because you, again, like, to humanize the antagonist is kind of going about it, the wrong way, which, I mean, they've done that time and time again, right? And I think there's a way of telling that story and still holding that value that, hey, this is still a murder. Like, you still see Pearl kill people. You know what I mean? You still see Pearl, do a whole bunch of fucking crazy shit, right? Different from Maxine, because Maxine is kind of, I mean, she kills inevitably because, she's fucking protecting herself. Especially in the last 15 minutes of the film. I think it's like one of the best that Ty West has ever done is in the last 10, 15 minutes of X. Although I will say a good runner-up is the last 10, 15 minutes of Pearl, because the thing with Ty West films is that it takes a minute to ramp up. Like, if you are down in the first 30, 40 minutes, you are going to be fucking in for a ride in the second half of the fucking movie. Like, that's why I love Ty West so much, because the setup, a lot of times people are like, okay, come on, let's just get to the fucking point. But he's doing the classic storytelling. He's settling the atmosphere, introducing your characters, understanding your characters, and giving all of the room for the setting and the actors and all that to interact with each other, in a way that can, portray what the story is really going to be about, until you hit the midway point, and then everything fucking changes, kind of like The Conjuring. I watched The Conjuring again for the first time. Adam, listen to yourself. I watched The Conjuring again, and it's been a few years. I would say like 5 years, roughly, since I've seen the first Conjuring film. And it never ceases to amaze me how well they executed something to the level of Poltergeist, but way more unsettling than Poltergeist. Because, yeah, it does center on a family with Poltergeist, but with The Conjuring, and I think Metamorphosis, which is a Korean horror film, which is so fucking terrifying, and it's so good. It's really fucking great. But they both share the same similarities in attitude of establishing the characters just enough for you to glean something from the family and all the characters within. So when you get to the second half of the story, you realize, of course, like, how much is at stake, what are the sacrifices, what are the saves, what are, the five head moments, the light bulb moments where it's just like, oh, the main character now understands and how to fucking harness the evil and defeat the evil. Evil dies tonight, kind of shit. Ty West is one of the only ones that can nail that perfectly, with respects to its villain, right? At least the villain of X, which is Pearl, because the main protagonist and I would say, somewhat antagonist, because Pearl is sort of conflicted in her own ways of why she feels the way she feels, and she regrets, and she mourns, and she, doesn't know how to control her emotions, and her anger gets the fucking best of her and whatnot. I think I think Ty is one of the only ones, in my opinion, that lets you empathize with the main character of Pearl, but not so much in a way that makes you take her seriously and the story seriously. Although, no, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack here. You do take it seriously. It is serious in the way that horror films are always serious in that respect, right? What I think is a movie like a franchise like Halloween, right? The real reason why it's so fucking terrifying is because we do not know where Michael came from, why Michael is the way he is, and why it's just like this fucking thing is a human killing machine. Although we don't even fully know if it's human, but that's like the magic of it. That's what makes it so unsettling, is because we don't fully understand these villains. And because we don't fully understand something, that's what makes it terrifying. Once we understand it and we can grasp our idea of who these monsters are, they become less scary, because then they become, real, or I guess relatable. Maybe not relatable, but you know what I mean. They have a conscience and you understand them, and there's a perspective there, right? Basically, there's a new trilogy for Halloween, right? Which started in 2018, and then it got from Halloween to Halloween Kills, I think, and then Halloween Ends. Let's talk about that for a second, and why Ty West in Pearl, I think, outranks that with his own trilogy, because Halloween did the thing that shouldn't have done, but Ty West has done phenomenally. And that is humanizing your villain. And you made the villain sort of a protagonist in a way, at least with the third film, in my opinion, because you sort of miss the forest through the trees, right? At some point when you develop a villainous story, right? When you humanize it so much, humanize that thing so much, that you sort of kind of lose touch in what is the story to gleam off of, right? Because at the end of the day, evil is evil, right? Because you came from a good moral standard in what is right and what is wrong, and following your conscience, Pinocchio style. You have to understand that, like, there are definitely films that are worth it enough that some antagonists and some even protagonists just cannot learn their lesson. And that's fine. In fact, I probably encourage that. If there's a way to tell a story like that, where, you as an audience sort of see the lesson and understand the lesson, the main character just 100% doesn't understand that, right? And I feel like there is a way to do that with the Halloween films, the new Halloween trilogy. But they didn't do that. And in my opinion, it would have been way better to end it in the first one, because spoilers for Halloween, the new trilogy, Michael Myers is locked up in a basement by Laurie Strode in constructing the perfect trap, essentially, and entrap Michael inside of a wine cellar, deep underground in a basement, basically, and lit the fucking entire house on fire, dude. Okay? And then he fucking, by the second film, walks right out of that apparently. And yeah, somehow gets away with it, I guess. You know, I don't fully remember it because it was so like, it felt like there's so much exposition uh on why we have to focus so much on Michael Myers when there is like Laurie, who is still going through trauma, but ultimately she has her own shit she's got to deal with, right? And combating it at the end in the third one, and like having, you know, her family basically come together and defeat the Shape once and for all. Evil dies tonight. I don't know. You're kind of missing the magic of Michael Myers, and that we just will never understand who this thing is. You know, it's just, again, embodiment of evil, of pure evil. That's just through and through what that character is. Pearl, for Ty West, and why Ty nails this, at least trilogy so far, really well, because he understands where the character is coming from, but also understanding why they are doing it in the first place. And the fact that this is a killer, you know, at least telling it to the audience, like, remember, this is a killer. This is not a good person. So we have to understand that this person lived the life that they lived because, not because of one thing or another thing, or, you know, oh, the mom neglected her, that's why she became a killer. She became a killer because she is a killer. You know what I mean? And I think that was what was missing from a lot of these stories, is because the killers are always, I don't know, there's certain killers that are just somehow justified, you know, in terms of like why they do what they do, right? And whether or not that makes a good horror film or a bad horror film, you have to understand that the characters are the reasons why horror fans even exist in the first place, right? Between Jason, between all the, because they're terrifying. They are horrifying monsters that we cannot fully understand. Pearl, on the other hand, we absolutely understand. 100%. Doesn't make her right with what she's done, but we at least can glean off of something that has happened in her past, and all the events leading up to this have kind of like built itself up. Sort of like how Joker was, the Todd Phillips Joker, but not in a way that just sort of like says, you know, like how it's a cautionary tale about incels, right? I guess long story short, with Joker. Pearl, I mean, I don't know if there's really a commentary of anything other than that it's just an ode to, you know, great killers of our entire film history, and sort of come as like an amalgamation of all the, like, you know, like not Jason, what's the fucking killer from Psycho? Norman Bates. If you are a Norman Bates thing, instead of taking the route of like a TV show where it's like, oh, this is the origin story of Norman Bates, instead of actually just showing the evil with the trials and tribulations of how they become evil and why they were evil all the way in the fucking beginning, that's the kind of story that I feel like works, because ultimately it's like wolves in sheep clothing, right? These are people who look like us. They're just regular ass people, and they can just be any one of us, right? I mean, you can't live your life thinking that everyone's a fucking serial killer, but you know, that's kind of what made the Scream movies fun, right? The recent Scream movies, because, you know, it kind of played around with that idea of like who can you trust? Who are the people who, you know, for the story's sake, would be a great fucking twist, right? The greatest twist. And Ty West doesn't leave anything off the table. Like he puts everything out on Front Street and shows you what an evil character like this can do while maintaining at least from an outsider's perspective, like an innocent circumstance, but not so much an innocent person. The circumstance being a poor child living on a farm, working on a farm day and night, and wanting something greater than yourself, right? But, in order to take something, you're not going to kill for it. Pearl, on the other hand, she absolutely would kill for it. She doesn't care. And she even mentions it too. They don't leave anything on the table. They knew exactly who this character was from beginning to fucking end. Michael Myers, couldn't tell you. You know what I mean? He's a sweet boy that was just misunderstood by the third film, and he kills. But he's a killer, though, and we got to remember that. But, shit happened in Michael's life, and then he just wants to stab everybody. It's like, I guess, sure, and they touch on that in the first Halloween film, right? But, like, you have to get to a point where it's just like, enough's enough. Let's just carry on with Laurie Strode's story and not worry about, like, oh, this is why Michael feels the way he feels. You can touch on it a little bit, but let's not forget we're dealing with a fucking killer here, And I guess that's like arguably what a lot of these like true crime documentaries and even the narratives, like the scripted shows like Dahmer and whatnot, like dude, this fucking fly just like tried to like attack the mic in my face at the same time. It was crazy. It was wild. No more. Fuck me. But I think the goal for what the fuck was I talking about? I don't even know anymore. God damn it. It doesn't matter, I guess. Ty West, Pearl, horror films. Was I talking about another horror film? Halloween Kills. I'm getting there. Michael Myers. Well, I guess I was basically wrapped with that point. But essentially, it's like if you're going to make a iconic horror figure, make that horror figure, I mean, unique is a given, right? But like, make that iconic character terrifying in the first place, right? Because once you humanize a killer, they're not really killers anymore, right? It's sort of like Dexter. It's like, he's a horrible person, but he does a good thing, I guess, but not really. And that's kind of like the whole juggle of it all with the entire show. And then the ending happened, and then nobody wants to talk about it anymore. But again, it's like when you show empathy to a certain something, you gotta also have the realization or the reveal that, like, hey, this is still a fucked up person. Let's not get this shit twisted. Let's get this shit really twisted. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that was like my biggest problem, my biggest gripe with the new Halloween trilogy. And I don't know, because it's the same director of the Halloween trilogy that is going to direct and also co-wrote The Exorcist Believer. And to wrap up the Ty West and talk about Exorcist, Ty West is a phenomenal director, and I can't wait for Maxine. And I think everybody should jump on Ty West films. I think there's a horror film for every horror aficionado, or somebody who's just getting into horror. I think Ty West is a good starting point for anybody who is new to horror, because I don't want to say he's not terrifying, but it's definitely palatable as opposed to like, some crazy ass film like a Paranormal Activity. Like that shit can be very unsettling, or an Ari Aster like Midsommar or Hereditary. Like that shit is not for the faint of heart. And neither, I guess, is Ty West, but at least with Ty West, you know what you're going to get. And it's just going to be some nostalgia fun, but some kind of fun storytelling. It's just a fun time. It's just a fun time with Ty West films. I love his shit. So yeah, that being said, Exorcist Believer, right? At first I watched the trailer and at first I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be crazy. And then when I realized, because I keep thinking about Halloween Ends, and it just bums me out, because it didn't necessarily ruin the Halloween franchise for me, but it definitely didn't end it in the way, it's sort of like Star Wars, I guess. It didn't end it in a way that I would have thought it would end, right? So yeah, I just think that Exorcist Believer looks good enough that could be something, but I please and I pray to whoever, the horror film gods, and please don't make this a fucking trilogy. Let's just relax. You know what I mean? Like, John Carpenter, nor did William Friedkin make another, or wait, did William Friedkin make Exorcist 2? I don't know, and I don't want to look it up. That's too much work. But yeah, I don't know why everybody has to get a fucking trilogy, and that's really nothing against David Gordon Green. I love David Gordon Green, and his way of kind of coming into the horror genre is kind of cool, because he made Halloween the first of the sequel trilogy, Halloween 2018. And that film, at least in my opinion, was a great way of paying homage to a story that we all know and love and terrify over, and have this great way of talking about Laurie and her family and the shit that they have to deal with from Laurie and all that, even to that time, right? Because Michael was locked up, but Laurie is very much traumatized and very much like, oh, I'm building a fucking fortress and it's going to be impenetrable. Absolutely. So I think there's some ground to cover with The Exorcist, at least with this new one, right? Because if you just do the one and done, and if it's what I see it might be kind of fucking rad. Because in the trailer for Exorcist Believer, there's like, I don't know if that's going to be the main plot, but like exorcisms apply to not just Christianity or Catholicism, at all. It bronze all religious sects and creeds and all that. Evil lives in every form of religion. And I think to explore that is fucking awesome. I think that would be insanely rad, right? How is it going to play? I don't know. And what I'm also scared about is watching the trailer. I'm very, very terrified that we just saw the entire fucking movie. And I don't know. Like, I have a love-hate relationship when it comes to trailers. In the hateful sense of like, oh, I fucking hate trailers. I don't want to watch them. It's just the hate in the sense where I don't know why they have to give away the fucking farm every single time with trailers. They show all the crazy ass fucking cool shit. Like I literally watched this movie and I can't remember the latest fucking not Bond, but it's the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible. Adam, holy shit, take a nap. I have to. Jesus Christ, I can't even remember Mission Impossible. The fucking one of the biggest films that released this year. Jesus Christ. Anyways, Mission Impossible, right? The latest film. I felt like the trailer really did a disservice for the overall film, not because it's like, oh, it spoiled the entire film, but it spoiled enough where half of these stunts I see, like not half, okay, but like one of the bigger ones, like when there's a huge like motorcycle jump, right? That shit is crazy. That's awesome, and it's great seeing that. Why did you show it in the trailer? Like, you could show a frame of it, fine. But I don't want to... This fucking fly, dude. This fly is one... It wants to kill me. It wants to kill me. It attacked my face like twice already, and I didn't even flinch. And then this third time, I'm just like, God damn, bro. Chill. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyways. Where was I? Anyways. Doesn't matter. I think Exorcist is going to be hopefully good because it's been a while since like we've seen a film in that sort of vein. The last... I mean, I guess Conjuring was the last one, right? Where dealt with exorcisms. Well, no, I take that back. Metamorphosis was like one of the greatest fucking exorcism films. I mean, I don't want to say ever, but definitely, because The Exorcist is like kind of a league of its own, right? And to make a sequel from it is definitely a ballsy thing to do. Just because it's like you're talking about a classic that may or may not play well as a sequel, right? To just revisit something and to introduce a whole slew of other characters that may or may not service that story, right? Scream did it fairly well, especially with the first newest one of the I guess next trilogy, maybe, I don't know. And I think that worked. I think that was pretty fucking cool. And Halloween, same shit, but only with the first film, right? The second film, I was very much not on board with, and the third one, it was just like, woof, I'm not into this at all. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, I think I'm hopeful, but also, and I'm a David Gordon Green fan. I've been a fan of the Gordon Greens since Pineapple Express, one of the best. Fuck me, this fly. One of the best stoner films since Cheech and Chong, or How High. I think I prefer How High a little more. No, I think it's the same level. I think it's to the same level. I really enjoy both of them. But Pineapple Express is, come on. To me, it's a classic. I know so many people who fucking hate that film. I love that film. That shit gets a rotation from me probably once a year. Maybe every other year. If I'm feeling like I want to put some distance, but like, and I'm long overdue for another viewing. So don't tempt me with the good time. Just want to see James Franco kick through a fucking windshield again. Anyways, yeah. So that's about it. I mean, I was going to talk about the strikes, but it's just here's the thing. I think the strikes are very important to talk about. They are, in fact, probably one of the most important things, at least in my line of work. You see, I'm getting attacked. I don't understand this fucking fly. This is insane. This fly, I swear to fucking Christ. I hate this fucking fly. This thing's gonna die right after this pot. I'm gonna clap this fool so goddamn hard. Anyways, I was gonna talk about strikes. I don't know if I really want to get into it other than that, like, for any updates. I did read somewhere earlier this morning that the SAG strikes could possibly carry over to the next year. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's kind of a shame because I hope that the negotiations can come to like an amicable like conclusion that is fair pay for everybody. You know what I mean? And it's not the fact that I want these streamers to lose money, because it's the opposite of that, right? It's the fact that like there needs to be a reallocation of money that doesn't always end up going to the fucking top few of that company, right? And it just lines their fucking pockets with cash every single fucking year. And they walk away with that, you know, every fucking time. And of course, if you work in Hollywood accounting with that, there's some fucking bullshit inflated numbers that are, inflated cash flow that is literally crippling the film industry, except for a very few, you know, who are essentially the gatekeepers of Hollywood now with the streamers and all that shit, right? And it's a problem. It's a really big fucking problem. So I hope they come to a better conclusion that is fair. I'm not looking for, you know, fucking like, oh, we got to give them a better amount of money with the just make it fair. Make it so where that the writers and the actors don't have to work a second fucking job in order to supplement their income. That's just bullshit. Now, if you don't work as much, that's basically on you, right? But like if you're a writer with the intent of making it your first and foremost job, which a lot of people do, especially who are part of that union, it's not really fair to them to just essentially say, hey, pick another profession, sweaty. You're not good at it. You might as well just move on. And that's fucked up, and that's bullshit. And with the looming, you know, cloud of AI over the actors and writers, I think is a very unfair and bullshit tactic to scare these people, you know. And I think most people aren't buying it, which I'm glad to see. But of course, you're going to get those few people who are, and you know, it is what it is. What can you do? But it's been the SAG update, I guess. That's about it. Go watch Ty West films, man. Go watch some horror films. If I were to give a recommendation for where to begin, if you have not seen a Ty West film or haven't seen X or have seen X and Pearl and just don't really know what the director's about, I highly recommend starting off with House of the Devil. I think that's a great fucking film. Highly underrated. And it's a fun ass fucking time. Bring friends who are also into horror films. It's fucking awesome. So that's been it, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta go. I gotta go smash this entire fucking room so I can kill this fly, you know, Walter White style from Breaking Bad. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.